Good evening, everyone. It's 6 o'clock p.m., and I would like to call this regular meeting of the Lansing School District Board of Education to order. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you very much. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Dr. Body?
He is here.
He is here? Okay. Thank you. Dr. Kavanaugh? Ms. Hodgen? Mrs. Lawrence?
Here.
Ms. Liljie? Mr. Lopez? I thought I saw him, yeah. Mrs. Moore?
Present.
Dr. Rodriguez? And Mrs. Willis. Quorum is present.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we get started on our agenda this evening, I know Rachel's in her car right now, so that makes it a little bit easier. I want to just send a lot of love to the Lewis and Willis families on the loss of our former board member and mother of current board member, Mrs. Robin Lewis. Robin was an incredible woman who has raised an incredible woman, and she will be very missed. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Additions to the agenda this evening, Dr. Rodriguez?
Thank you, Madam President. There are times we had to keep secrets, but tonight we cannot keep the secret for more time. Then I want to add, before my report, Secretary report, the honoring two board members.
So what?
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez.
I'm sorry, Dr. Rodriguez, I didn't understand what you said.
Very much. We want to add, before I do my report, we can add honoring two board members. Thank you.
Any other additions to the agenda this evening? Okay, we'll move on to public comment on agenda items. We have no public comment on agenda items. If anyone in the audience would like to make public comment on an agenda item, there are blue cards in the back of the room. Please fill out a blue card, hand it in the front of the room, and you can make your public comment. We will move on to, we have no presentations this evening, so we'll move right along to our report from Superintendent, Mr. Schuldiner.
Good afternoon, everyone. And again, it goes without saying that our hearts and minds go out to Rachel and the entire family. I only knew Robin briefly, but she was really terrific, and I know she will be missed. My normal presentation I will give, but we also actually have a specific presentation where I will move over there because it'll be more official, I guess. But I just want to thank everybody for being here. This is our last board meeting of the year, which is kind of crazy. The last board meeting for the person to my left, which is also really crazy. And we will certainly talk about that at another time, as Dr. Rodriguez talked about. As always, trying to be a person of my word. The gas card distribution, we're at 2,963. So almost 3,000 families are getting the gas cards, with 22 people being processed this week. CATA is at 762. We've been hovering around that for the last couple of months. And then with buses, we have 3,192 being routed, and less than 100, so 93 on the wait list, which again, it should be 0, but we're really trying to move quickly on that. In general, I have a relatively large presentation that I'm going to give to the board, so I don't want to take too much time, but certainly for those of you in the audience and those of you listening at home, I wish you all the best. Happy holidays to all. This has been a lot this year, certainly, but we're really feel good about where we're going in a direction, and hopefully when we start the new year, we'll come back refreshed and ready to fight the good fight. So with that, John, if you could put the PowerPoint up, and I will move seats, and I will ask if the Deputy Superintendent join me at the mic, as well as the COO. We will give you a little presentation. Terrific. Okay. Hello, everyone. Nice to see your faces this way. As I think you all know, to my right is Jessica Minavinas, Deputy Superintendent, and to my left is Christina Tokar, COO. You all know I'm not from here. I got here about 16 months ago. And in this last 16 months, I've been spending really every day in a school, talking to parents, talking to kids, talking to teachers. And what I've been struck by is two really very different but very strong truths. Truth number one is that we have really good people here. We have teachers that care deeply. We have parents that care deeply. We have a school board that cares deeply. We have people that want Lansing to succeed. I mean, I have seen that every day, every place I've ever gone. But there's another truth, and you've heard me all talk about it, and I've written about it, is that the systems and structures of this district are antiquated, they're inefficient, and they don't really serve kids as best as they can. And I appreciate so much this board has really been understanding of that, and that when we do write about those hard truths, be it test scores or hiring or whatever it is, we're acknowledging what we have and acknowledging where we can go. And one of the huge issues that I've been seeing more and more is the places in which our kids go to school. I think we would all agree, and I would certainly defer to our medical doctor, that environment matters deeply, that going into a building that is safe, that is secure, that is clean, that is up to code as much as possible. I mean, all of our buildings are up to code. I don't want to inference that, but that we really want to think really critically about where we're sending our kids. But we also want to think really critically about the kinds of schools we're sending our kids to, and that we've been taking, and I mean really all of ET, have been taking a deep, deep look as to what is best for kids. So this presentation, I hope, sets the stage, and then I'll kind of go in depth on some more things. And then, of course, my two wonderful colleagues will chime in at any time. And certainly, please ask any questions that you want. But I want to at least give you some things to look at, and then we can go through. So as you can see, this is about structuring schools to better serve our students. Well, on its face, what makes a robust school experience? Of course, great educators, right? You want a great teacher, you want a great librarian, you want a great music teacher, whatever it is. Great educators, we know that. But we also want to make sure that we have safe, secure, and inviting school buildings. We also want to have multiple opportunities for enrichment and support. We want to make sure that we have strong family-school bonds, and we really want to reduce disruption, transitions, and building changes. We have a principal who is fond of saying, I want to disrupt disruption, and I really like that phrase. And then if you also notice that these kind of bullet points are exactly correlated to both the framework for great schools, which has a section on supportive environment and strong family community ties, as well as the really wonderful and I think paradigm shifting strategic plan, where two of the big topics I guess it got cut off a little bit. Facilities and school structures and robust student programming, and support for students. So again, if we agree to this, and I think we do, then we have to look really critically at the schools we send our children to. So how can the district better create a robust school experience? These are all things that we should be thinking about. Well, that wonderful person over there sitting with their pad and pen thinking, well, some great ideas. How about K-8? How about air conditioning for our children? How about arts? How about PE, although PD is important too. And then you see those things on the right-hand side. We need to have students learn in the best physical space possible. We do want to make sure to have enough specials teachers being arts and PE and music and librarians and such. And then having multi-grade buildings and more efficient transportation. We know that we have a bus issue here. We do know that. And, we want to make sure that we're thinking really critically about how to get as many of our kids to school on time as possible. So, what have parents told us, right? Since I've gotten here, 17 months ago, I've been talking to parents. We did surveys. A lot of these are not direct quotes. I want to be very clear, but it is very much what they are saying to us. We want the 7th and 8th graders out of the high schools. We want the buses to be more reliable. I think the one actually is a direct quote. I hate sending my children to 3 different schools. It's hard to manage the many bell times. We want more access to arts, music, and physical education. And you can tell, like, this is reality. I don't think anybody's going to kind of dismiss these things from parents. So how can we think about that? I guess I can go back. Can I? Oh, I can. So if this is what parents have said, and we want to listen to parents, if these are the things that we want to have a more robust school experience, and we want to align with our framework for great schools and our strategic plan, then we've got to think critically about the kind of schools that can accommodate this vision. So here we go. Willow, which is got 275 students, but 78 are preschool. Not that we don't love our wonderful preschool students, but when you're thinking about count and stuff like that, it's a little bit different. So we want to make sure that we're using the correct numbers. And then you have Riddle, and we'll talk about the building of Riddle in a second. Only has 181 students, 31 of them are preschool, and it has a capacity of 451 with some planned improvements. If you've ever been to Riddle, they have a ton of kind of open space, and so it's very easy to convert those into classrooms. Rio, 235, but 32 preschool students. Atwood, 198 with a capacity of 440. So you can imagine that Atwood is relatively empty. Wonderful teachers. I think there's a teacher behind me who's wonderful. So, you've got great people, but if that's a building that has a capacity of 440, we got to be thoughtful about the space. Kendon, same thing, 242, but 75 preschool students. So for K3, less than 200. Rio, 200, 203 if you want to do the math, and then Willow less than 200 as well. And North, that's the big one that's so interesting, 205 kids with a capacity of 610. It's actually 65,000 square feet. It's twice as big as most of our, it's twice as big as most of our middle schools. So this idea, and we'll get to the idea, of course, of merging Willow into Riddle, Rio into Atwood, Kendon into North, would create 3 K-8s, one in the north, one in the southeast, and one in the southwest. Because again, what do we care about is the whole city. And we want to make sure that nobody is feeling left out to having this. Okay, so these new schools, and I definitely put it in quotations because they are not actually new schools, but they would be, is let's also be really thoughtful about the buildings we're sending the kids to. So Willow, Rio, and Kendon, these are older buildings. These are buildings that don't have air conditioning. These are buildings that have other issues. And then Riddle, Atwood, and North, as you will see, are school buildings that we've put a ton of investment into. Riddle has 2.167, 366.458, just if you want to know to the penny how much money we've invested. But it's not about the money.
It's about what's in Riddle. New classrooms, new technology, new furniture, air conditioning, site work. If you walk into Riddle, it feels new. It feels clean. You've got these great round lights that brighten up the room. We don't have stuff like that in a lot of our schools. There's a lot of glass partitions. It makes the school feel airy and open. Atwood, 3.6 mil, new classrooms, new technology, new furniture, air conditioning, site work. And then North, the big chunk, $7.478 million into new classrooms, new technology, new furniture, air conditioning. They get a new roof. They got site work. If you've been to North lately, they have an outdoor classroom. They have some really cool stuff, a walking path. It's really kind of a wonderful place. And so if we have this ability to go from Willow, Rio, and Kendon to Riddle, Atwood, and North with capacity, with size, you can imagine, especially that environmental question, why can't we get every single one of our kids into a classroom that we really say, hey, this is top notch? So you might say, and I will be very honest, I think all of you know that, is that this district has a history of emptying schools and laying them to be fallow. Everybody knows Walter French. It's on the corner of something and something. And every time I pass it, it looks like, man, that's a school building and that is empty. I don't think we've owned it for like a decade, but it's still, if not more, but it still feels like it's our responsibility. And I think as a good steward of space, a good steward of the city, I would like to believe that a superintendent and really a school district cares about the entire city, not just our children. And so you very much as a board should be very thoughtful about saying, but Ben, what happens to those other buildings? Great question. So as you can see, Willow is one of the schools that is in the new bond. So Willow is going to be torn down and rebuilt brand new and be built as we wrote pre-K 8, still to be determined about having preschool there or not because of time and space and stuff like that. But it's going to be a pre-K 8 or a K 8 with a campus feel. That neighborhood where Willow is deserves the best. It's on, a nice chunk of property. It's got a lot of land. We're going to be designing it soon. In fact, I think there's going to be an item that we're going to be talking about after this presentation about what we're going to be doing with Willow. That's what's going to happen to that building. But as you all know, if you really want to do something new, you got to start kind of with a fresh slate. So the kids at Willow got to go somewhere. And so, of course, we want to put them in a building that has air conditioning, that's new, that's, really supportive for learning. Kendon is, a great building. I was there a lot this week. I was there this morning, actually. And, it's a place that deserves great things. And kind of behind the scenes over the last couple of months, and the board does know this, I've been talking to Head Start. Head Start is really an amazing thing that this country does, right? Head Start's not just in Lansing, it's across the country. And research after research has shown kids that start in Head Start do better, right? It's terrific. So we've, in fact, had a walkthrough with them today where it looks like, and I can't promise, but they might be next to me tomorrow to say as much, is that we really are going to be partnering with Head Start so that they can use space at Kendon and we would keep preschool there so that you can now create a continuum from almost birth to 5 years old. And how powerful can that be that you now have a building that can be vibrant with Head Start, with younger children, with working with our kids so that you can create this beautiful continuum from kind of birth to 5 years old or 4 years old, depending on what you choose. And again, the community of Kendon deserves to not have an empty building, but something that is super vibrant. And then Rio, another amazing, wonderful neighborhood that deserves the best. Rather than leave that building open, we have been kind of behind the scenes working with Justin and the Promise about having them come and help us with Rio, turning it really into a community center so that we can have nonprofits use the space, that the Lansing Promise can use the space, and really kind of revitalize not just Rio, but the land around Rio. There's quite a lot of acreage there to do really special things things. So, I owe it to you, we owe it to you, that even if we think something is best for children, we also have to think what's best for the community. And having 3 empty buildings is not what's best for the community. And honestly, selling it to somebody that we don't know if they're going to do something with it or not is not great either. So let's figure out, and I think we have done something really powerful by saying Kendon and Head Start, Rio and the Promise, doing something really special for the community. Now, you might say, but hey, look, I go to Rio. How far away is Atwood? Well, it's only 1.4 miles, and that's not that big a deal. It is some, I'm not going to discount it, but 1.4 miles is really not that far. We do have buses, and we'll talk about why this is going to help the buses in a second. And I will show you a heat map in a second so that you can understand how impactful or not impactful this is. So for instance, this is a heat map. This is the Rio heat map. What you see, the top bluish circle is where Rio is, and the bottom circle is where Atwood is. And so what you notice is they're pretty close, but more interestingly enough, all those little dots, those are the kids, or their families or their houses really. But those kids, if you notice, changing the location of the school isn't going to really dramatically impact travel time. In fact, for some, it'll actually be better. But what I find interesting, and this is for another conversation, who's that kid that lives all the way up at the top of the screen and is coming all the way to these schools, which is a whole other story. But, again, I want to show you this heat map so that nobody is really worried of saying, oh my God, the transportation, it's a neighborhood thing. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But again, this is the heat map for Rio, showing the top and the bottom. Those are the schools. Same thing with Willow. It's 1.6 miles away. And then their heat map is here. So again, you can see the top one is Willow, the bottom one is Riddle. You can see all of those kids that actually live in the South that travel there. So again, it's not this, oh my God, we have these neighborhood schools, they all walk to school and now you're impacting it. It turns out that's actually not what's happening. Now, we can have a wonderful, robust conversation about how I would love to bring back neighborhood schools, but that's a whole other conversation, and we're not there yet. So this, again, is about the impact. And then same thing for Kendon. So if you look Kendon and north, you've got all those kids on the left-hand side, on the southern side. There are certainly some families that are north of Kendon where it will be additional, but you notice they're on mainly near Cedar. The bus route will go straight down Cedar, and the impact is going to be not as great as if you had tons of families that were actually walking to these schools. So, and if you notice, I put 2 numbers for Kendon only because 1.7 is walking, 1.9 is driving, and that's because Cedar's one way. So just I want to be as detail oriented as possible. So again, Rio, Willow, Kendon, going to Atwood, Riddle, and North, all less than 2 miles. Some are even less than 1.5 miles. And we will have buses. And you can see by the heat map why this will be less impactful. And then you might be asking yourself again, and I've been a little redundant and I apologize, is what's so special about K-8s? Why in the world would this be something that we should care so deeply about? And again, because I have one of our great pedagogical leaders to my right, I will cede the microphone over to Jess in a second, but I just want to highlight 4 big things about K-8s. 1, more support and specials. If you have a school of less than 200, you just can't have a full-time art teacher. You can't have a full-time music teacher. Just the math just doesn't work. They become itinerant. They travel. They go back and forth. It's hard to build community. You can't have those full-time things. PE. I mean, it is unfortunate that our sports teams are not doing as well as they should. Well, maybe it's because we're not having full-time PE and right. There's all these things that we can start to really do with a K-8 model. One thing that I didn't put up here is If you have, let's say, a full-time art music person and a full-time PE person, and you have 2 classes across the board, you can have both first grade teachers freed up during the specials so they can work together and co-plan. Then the next period, the second grade teachers can. So there's a lot of positive externalities that can come from this kind of work. 2, transitions. There is so much research out there about transitions are hard for children. They're hard for adults too, right? New job, new house, new whatever. But imagine going from one school where you know the teachers, you know the places, you know how to get there, you know where the bathrooms are, and now you go to another. We have kids in this district that transition 4 or even 5 times. So they go from pre-K school to, let's say, a pre-K program, to a K-3 program, to a 4-6 program, to a 7-8 program, to a 9-12 program. That's a lot of transitions. That's not great. It's hard to do stuff. And what we know is kids really want to be at one place and build those relationships. So reducing transitions is really powerful. And the third, family school ties. Well, look, if you have a kid for 9 years in a building, imagine how strong those PTAs can be and those relationships can be, and growing up together. There's a lot of really great things that can happen with those school and family ties. And then the fourth one, which is something that I really care deeply about, and I know Jess does too, is sometimes in this district we think in this let's call it a deficit thinking model. Oh my God, all these kids are going to be together. They're all going to fight together. Or we can say, what would be super powerful? A 7th grader being a wonderful support for a 2nd grader, an 8th grader being a wonderful support for their 3rd grader. And if a school really does that and works with it, then you can really do some amazing things. I mean, I've seen it personally in places that I've worked. Jessica can talk about it as well, and I'll cede it over to her. But if we start to build what's right and what's great and what's best, we can start to create those things so that we can then serve our children better. So there's a lot of other reasons for K-8, but I really want you to think about how we can get more specials, more supports, right? Because if you have more kids, let's say 400 kids, there might be the ability to have more other supports like literacy coaches and things like that, full-time, transitions, reducing the number of transitions, stronger family and school ties, and certainly some leadership opportunities that are not afforded in places that are just pre-K-3. But Jess, I don't know if you want to.
Sure, I'll just say a couple things. I think a really great example of some of the things that we're seeing here are at Wexford with our transition with Wexford and Wood Creek coming back together. In fact, Liz, when the news of these mergers had started to come out, she had sent me a text and said, please send anyone our way. We would love to show off how K-8 can really work in a school. And her older students really have taken on those leadership opportunities. She even has one student that helps scan in kids in the morning, and she has school jobs, and they've really taken over kind of the leadership of the school, and they're really looked up to by the little students. And so there's some really wonderful opportunities that can happen. I know when Ben came in, he said, I really want a mentor for every student in the school district. We don't have to look to the outside to have those opportunities happen for our kids. They can happen very naturally in a K-8 setting. I had the luxury of growing up in a K-8, and about 6 of my closest friends I've known since kindergarten. And it was because of the K-8 setting, we really grew up together. And then we had the opportunity as 7th and 8th graders to do some tutoring with 4th and 5th graders to do math and things that students might need a little bit of extra support in. So I've experienced that firsthand with the K model. It can be really a powerful model. The other thing that's really great, and I was a little jealous because I didn't have a sibling that went with us, but it was so fun to see even the older students who would then kind of walk out with their little brother or sister or stand at the bus stop. So one of the things even with the busing is that it will reduce the number of stops because families will be together. So if there are 3 siblings that would typically now go to a pre-K-3, a 4-8, and then the high school, for example, they would only then have to come to that school or that stop or that home once, because the entire family, with the exclusion of the high schoolers, would be going to this school. So in a lot of ways, it will help with transportation, but I'm really excited about kind of the growing. The other part that's really wonderful is to have collaboration, really K-8 and pre-K-8, because of the fact that you can really spiral the curriculum. I can just look down the hall to see what kids are doing from the year before or the year after. And it's really amazing having students who you had for many years, and then they'll walk down the hallway and they see their second grade teacher. Their demeanor changes a little bit when they're in sixth grade because they have this like, oh, okay, that's Mrs. So-and-so, and I have to, right? Because they want to be seen in a certain light. So I'm really excited about this possibility. I think that there's a lot of great positives to this.
Thank you, Jess. So there's another kind of truth of this district that, we don't highlight because it's negative and scary, but I think you all know me well enough that we just, light is the best disinfectant. So what you're looking at is what we call our 606. So what this is all the kids and all the land. Now, don't worry so much about the stuff on the left. We do not actually run the Montessori Children's House or the Lansing Catholic School, high school. What this is that we have to serve them with some other things. But the most important number that you can see where the circle is the bottom. So the grand total of third graders in our district is 829. But in fourth grade, it's 733. We lose almost 100 students a year between third and fourth grade. That transition, it's just not something that the families are really super supportive about. Now, if you notice, the numbers are kind of commensurate. They do increase in ninth grade, which is a whole other issue, which is about credit accumulation and things like that. I can go into it. I'm always happy to answer those questions. But really what we're highlighting here is the precipitous drop between third and fourth grade. And this is not just 2022. This is 21 and 20 and 19 and 18. That what we see is families leaving the Lansing school district in droves between that third and fourth year. But you know where we don't see that drop? In the K-8s. So if you look at a place like Dwight Rich from 50 to 62, Gardner from 78 to 82, from Luton 21 to 37. Well, that's also because we created a class, which was really a good idea. Pattengill 71 to 78. So what you see, of course, is that kids stay in the school they go to because they feel comfortable, because the truth is we do a good job here. We can do better, of course, but the families who are sending their kid to Pattengill, it's 76 and 74, then 80, then 71, then 74, then 77. Look at how there is no big drop between third and fourth grade. So that's the families telling something to us. They're voting with their feet. They're saying, yeah, we like it when we go to K-8s, and we know because that's what they tell us. But you can see 100 kids almost that we lose, but yet in the K-8s, we don't. And now it's not a one-for-one, and we can go into some data analysis here, but what you're really seeing is the places that have, and even Post Oak, 46 to 41, right? Wexford, 46 to 34 is a little bit of anomalous because the way they do grading, but even that, even if you take that there's an issue there, overall, the K-8s, they don't lose kids. And that means we're clearly doing something special there, and that we are figuring out how to, again, service our families as much as possible. So I want to just, again, say that if we really believe in this, and we really are putting students first, and we're really trying to have hard but honest conversations about what's best for kids, then being able to think about what parents have told us, think about the buildings that we have, think about what we have already invested and already created that is great. Think about what the families have told us by where they're staying and where they're going, thinking about why K-8s are great. I really believe that this is a terrific change for this district. I will add a couple of other things. One, I know that this district has had a history of making decisions by press release. We try not to do that anymore. We've already had meetings with all of the 6 principals impacted. We've had meetings with the faculty that are impacted, and we've had parent meetings and sent out parent letters. It was a quick turnaround because we certainly know that once we talk about this, it'll get out, and we want to make sure that people know that we're doing this. But what we've afforded is to have direct individual conversations. I mean, this team has been at these schools. We've talked to faculty. We're really trying to at least put an ability to have a conversation way before these kind of decisions are being made. In addition, the interesting thing legally, and I'll get to this, is the superintendent, me, has the kind of legal authority to do this. I've sadly probably spent a lot of money of the districts on calls to our lawyers to make sure that we are absolutely sure of this. And so it's important that, yes, a superintendent can do this, but the point of a superintendent isn't to just make decisions by fiat. We can't do that. We have to have conversations face to face with parents, with kids. Well, we've actually talked to kids, parents, and faculty and principals. But all of these ideas, we've sat down with the teachers union, we've sat down with the administrators union, LASA, and really just saying, if we're going to put kids first, sometimes we're going to have to make difficult decisions, but even this, I don't think is that difficult. I just think it's the right decision. And change is hard. Change is difficult, but when you know that you're always putting kids at the center, all 10,000 of our kids, you end up getting to a Occam's razor answer pretty quickly. A kind of clear and decisive what you think is best for kids. And so, we've given, like 12 different presentations now. I mean, we've done it to principals, to kids, to principals, to teachers, to families. And look, I do appreciate that this was quick. I do appreciate that not every family member was able to make the meetings. But we really want to make sure that we have the humanity of saying to the people most impacted, here's where we're thinking, here's where we're going, and you don't have to read about it in the newspaper. Now, we'll talk to the newspaper, of course, but we want to make sure that everybody knows. And that's why I felt so deeply about making a public presentation to all of you. You all know that we've certainly been talking about it, but what we do, individually, as a board, and I write my newsletters and I write my ideas. It's sometimes more powerful and more important to make sure that I say this in front of everybody, so that you have a chance to ask questions publicly, that you have a chance to feel good about this, regardless of my legal authority to just do it. So I want to turn it over to Jess and Christine if there's anything they want to add, and then I really look forward to questions and how we move forward. So.
Just to say that I was really happy to be able to be a part of the staff and the parent meetings. We did actually talk to a couple of students that came to the ones that came. That was really great. But I do want to just acknowledge the fact that there's going to be some emotion involved with these mergers, right? Because when I was at Elmhurst, it used to be a school before it was the Welcome Center. I was the interim principal during its closing. And we even talked about this a little bit yesterday when I was at Rio, is there's going to be some emotion tied to place. And a lot of it is, we just love our school and there's really great murals here, but this is a wonderful place. And I don't think anyone's saying that they're not. But we also think that our kids really deserve, and our staff really, to be in some really wonderful learning spaces. So I think just acknowledging the fact that there's going to be some people that are pretty sad about this, and there's going to be some natural grieving for people because, and it's a really positive, honestly, it's kind of heartwarming to know that they have a place that they really deeply care about. And I think that really speaks to the places that our principals and staff have created for our children. So I just think it's important to acknowledge that in all of this, because it's just a reality of any time we make changes or make decisions that it is going to impact the way that people feel. So.
Sounds good. So, yeah, please.
Thank you very much for the presentation. We have been grouping and regrouping students for many centuries.
Yeah.
I don't need the answer today. But one way is we run a school pre-K to 3. Another way we run a school 3, 4, and 5. And another way we run a school 7 and 8. Now we are grouping all these different ages and students on different motivation and talents and development. What is going to be the internal structure of this school? I don't need the answer today. Sure. But definitely to continue doing with the third graders until third graders from 3 to 7 to 3 to 5, the same, and then accommodate the whole thing is not reforming. It's not transforming. It's just placing students together. Then my interest for the students, not for me,
Yeah.
is how we are going to transform the buildings of this pre-K to 8 that benefit the students. I'll give you just an example. We used to have counselors for 7 and 8, but you don't have counselors for fifth graders or second graders and all that. The how we are going to be the new structure on the whole, and even the schedules.
Yep. So I appreciate that. I can wait to answer, but I would like to answer some of it now because, as Dr. Rodriguez knows, is a great educator himself, having many years in this district, is that planning this out is what matters, right? Just throwing a bunch of kids in a building and saying, ta-da, that's not going to matter, right? What matters is that by creating a K-8, you're actually able to bring more services. You're actually able to do more things. So not only about things like, the full-time art or music, but we're going to be able to departmentalize 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So not to use too much education-ese here, but right now in our many of our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade classes, they have one teacher. And that's really not, it's okay, but the better kind of way of growing a child is to say, 3rd grade, you have a teacher, 4th grade. Well, 5th grade, maybe we can start to have 2 teachers. 6th grade, you could have an English, math, history, science teacher. And then all of that can now be done with these 6/8s because we have more supports. And what then, of course, we see is that when an 8th grader leaves that system and goes to high school, they're kind of ready for it. Whereas right now, what we do is 6th grade, it's a teacher, they go to Everett, and it's 7th grade, and it's like, whoa, what is going on here? So what you can do with these K-8s is really grow sequentially so that the kids are ready. That's what they deserve from us. There's other things that we can do also with the physical space. So, something like Atwood, if you know the building, it's 6 pods of 3 plus 4 classrooms in the middle. So you can actually start to have space where this is the upper school, this is the lower school. It's the same thing with North. I mean, North might as well be a college. I mean, it's so big, 65,000 square feet. So they have different, basically huge sections that you can have. This is the upper school. This is a lower school. So you could start to build pride in that. But, to Dr. Rodriguez's question about what pedagogically we can do, that's about calendaring and scheduling, but also in terms of now having enough kids in a building that you could have a counselor. Right? We don't have that necessarily in a pre-K 3. And there's something powerful about having 3rd graders and 4th graders and 5th graders have access to social workers, counselors, et cetera. But Jess, if you...
The other part that we did talk with staff about is they're going to have this really great opportunity this spring to merge their categorical budgets, right? So they're going to be making additions as a staff because how categorical or Title I, 31A, it's based on your number of students that you have in your school. And so that means that their budgets will be larger, which is what happened with Wexford and Wood Creek. So there will be more opportunities to make different choices based now on the K-8 model. So those 2 staffs will be working together this spring and we'll kind of facilitate that work. So they can make different choices about the personnel that they're going to want at a K-8 setting. So
I think it's a great opportunity to dream and do it things, but also to create cultures.
Yep.
And with our students and our community identify with.
Agreed.
Then it's the last thing I want to lose is hope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And then I hope that you start with the principals and the teachers and the parents there to organize in different ways that we have been doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That we had different results. Yeah. And I probably won't be here when the result come out.
No, don't say that, Doc.
But it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
To renovate, to start, to do it. But let's go to do it right.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
We have been doing so many things wrong.
Yeah.
Let's go this time. Board members do it right.
Yeah.
And superintendent.
Thank you, Doc.
This is more.
How did you read my mind, right? You had a question? Yeah, I just have a question about the partnerships.
Sure.
So with Rio, we're looking at possibly partnering with the Promise.
Mhm.
So are we going to sell them the building? Okay, or are we gonna, or will we be partnering and will we have to renovate? Will the renovation cost us, the district?
A great question. We want to be very good stewards of certainly our money as well. So the work with both the Promise and with Head Start is we are not looking to sell the building, not at all. But we'll be able to have a relationship with the Promise where they can possibly things like pay rent or bring in nonprofits that can pay rent. They can also do things. I mean, you all know Justin. One of the things when we were first starting, we took a tour. He's like, "Oh, we're going to paint a mural here and we're going to do this here." And I'm like, "Yeah, man, that's great." Right. So, that kind of energy and that kind of support, we're going to be able to revitalize those buildings in ways that won't be expensive, but will be powerful. So no, at no point are we looking to sell because we want these to still be part of the Lansing School District. The Promise is like, a sibling to us, right? Head Start is like a cousin to us. We definitely don't want them to be like, "Oh, here for $1, take the building." And the other cool thing about some of this is we already have the infrastructure like internet, right? So we can run internet there, we can run phones there, we can do all of those things that'll help reduce their costs as well, but it's already sunk for us. So it's not like we're paying that much. So no, the idea here is to rent it, to find the right balance so that everybody is happy and to keep those communities with a vibrant building.
Okay, thank you. And I love the idea.
Oh,
Thank you. Just on the Willow Riddle situation.
Mhm.
So Willow is going to be torn down and rebuilt. At the same time, for that time, we want to make Riddle a K-8. And then what happens when Willow is built?
Sure. It's a great question. So right now, the idea is that the Willow kids will leave Willow, go to Riddle. We'll probably not have Riddle be a full K-8 because of just the timing, because they don't exist yet, right? So North has older kids, Atwood has older kids, so when we combine it, it'll be a K-8. The idea with Willow is that Riddle will be a kind of a K-5, pre-K4, and then we'll add a grade and add a grade. So do it organically. And by the time Willow is built, then it can be a full K-8. Now, as the question belies is, well, what happens to Riddle then? Because if we're going to take that combined school and move them all to Willow, to this brand new, beautiful campus, what do we do with this great Riddle building? Good question. Now, that is an answer that we'll have to come up with in the next 3 to 4 years, but we already have some ideas. One of the big ones is to start to think about all of our buildings in our district and bringing some folks out of buildings that also need renovation to kind of brand new ones. My big hope is that we can move a lot of the Welcome Center work to Riddle. Now, why? The first thing a family sees when they walk into this district to sign up their kid, it should be a bright, airy, beautiful place. Riddle, it's next to Let's. It's got that park. It's really nice. And there's parking, there's CATA access. There's all sorts of things that make a lot of sense for having Riddle possibly be more of the kind of welcoming place. We also can use it for adult ed. We can also use it for pre-K because it's already built for that. So those conversations, which we need to come up with in about 3 years, is something we're already thinking about. But I don't want to kind of promise now, because we want to make sure that those Willow kids have a wonderful, loving place at Riddle for the next 3 years, as long as it takes to build the building. And then as we transition them to Willow, which would be K-8, what do we do with Riddle? Now, I will say, big shout out to the Riddle family. I've already spoken with them. They've been really wonderful because they care deeply about this community, about what it means for them, and the building that's named after their grandmother. And so the idea is we're going to keep Riddle. It's part of us, but it's also this beautiful building that we can utilize to be better for our community, like a welcome center, like adult ed, like some of those things. So that's the plan. But we have 3 years to figure that out. Great question. So again, if any of you have gone to the Welcome Center, it is not the most welcoming of our buildings. And so if we start to plan kind of 3 steps, 4 steps ahead, and all of you listening at home and in the audience, when we have another bond in, 5 years, we would want to make sure that buildings like that are able to be renovated. But, if we have buildings that are great, it behooves us to use it. And if we have buildings that need help, we need to help them. So if we can start to move some stuff from the Welcome Center to Riddle, that will then free up our ability to renovate the Welcome Center. So it's, think of it like multiple chess moves, right? So the first move is Willow into Riddle so that we can rebuild Willow. Then we can move the kids to the new Willow so we can move things to Riddle. Then we can redo the Welcome Center. So there's a lot of need in our community. And so I think that we can be really thoughtful. The other thing too, and I'm sorry Sergio's not here, is that our adult ed program is really burgeoning. And so finding more space for our adult ed would be great, and Riddle would be able to do it. We also, as Christina can tell you, the PACE office and all of that is at the Welcome Center. That can come over, but we still need the Welcome Center. There is plenty of stuff there. We've got RIF, and we've got the grandparent program. We've got a ton of, there's a ton of stuff in that building. So we just need more space, and we want to make sure that we have the best space possible.
So finally,
Yeah.
Your goal is to have how many students by 2025?
We would like to be at 11,500.
Okay. So as you look at the space that you're talking about,
Mhm.
that accommodates
Yeah, I mean, right
the number
now.
we're shooting for.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, if you just do a straight seat analysis in this district, we could sit 14,000 kids. Actually, we could probably sit 15,000 depending. And that's not even including our over 400 students in the virtual. So we already have the space, but some of those seats have air conditioning, some of them don't. And some of those seats are in better buildings than others. So that's why we're hopefully thinking in this 10-year trajectory of how can we make sure that every kid in every school has what's best. And doing this is going to be that, I would say, second step. First step was the bond, right? Second step is this. Third step is going to be more of that. So it's great questions. Thank you, Guillermo.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this presentation.
Sure.
There's so much information. I'm sure you weren't even able to share all of it. My first thought is just about a little more about the sensitivity to the folks that are being impacted.
Mhm.
And I remember what Fairview was like before it was Pattongill, and I had my best friend's son went through there, and then my nephew was in Pattongill when it went from a small school to a large school. And that was jarring. That was very difficult from one year to the next. It was I think we need some transitional help with how that feels to go from a small, tiny little thing to a thing with 3 different schools under one roof, like you're talking about. By the way, I love the K-8. Post Oak is that way. My daughter is a safety for a kindergarten and a preschool classroom, and it's wonderful to see her mature and grow, having that mentorship experience and vice versa. So I support that concept, but I just want to make sure that we're sensitive to the folks that are being more sensitive than we were when we did Pattongill. I hope we can improve on our processing more there.
Yeah. So to that point, Missy, and I really appreciate what you're saying, is there's a reason why we're having this conversation in the middle of December, right? We were giving a presentation, I can't remember the school, and somebody was like, wait, so this is happening now? It's like, no. We don't do that anymore. This is for September. We have 8 months to plan this, right? That's why you do this early, because you have to have humanity with those adults as well as those kids. And so by making these decisions in the middle of December, it gives us 8 months to plan. And what we've been talking about is we'll take tours together. We'll bring the kids over. We'll have the teachers start to pick out rooms and start to meet their colleagues. Where if we made this decision in, let's say, May or June, which this district has done before, you're not doing what you're saying, which is being thoughtful and understanding about the impact, the social and emotional impact that this has on people. I mean, Jessica's not kidding. I mean, teachers like, what about that mural? It's like, well, you can take it with you if it's on a piece of wood, why not, right? And so we understand that it's deeply moving, not in a negative or positive way, but it's a change, right? And so the quicker that we kind of move through this, and again, I appreciate that there might be people who think, oh, this is really quick, like we should have done all these other things. But what you've seen in this presentation is this is the work of 16 months of listening to people, of understanding, of assessment, of talking and doing, so that when we pick the right timing, we can now give enough time for the families, for the kids, even for the bus routes, right? You know, one of the things that we have a problem with is when we make decisions late spring or early summer, the bus companies, the dean doesn't have enough time to really rethink routes. So this way, by, you know, moving it quickly, we can take into account what you're saying, which of course is, how do we make the humanity of this decision? And I appreciate what you're saying.
And I have one last question, which
Of course.
is a pretty simple one. We will still have some schools that are not K-8.
Oh yeah,
okay.
absolutely. And just to make that point, do I believe in K-8s? Absolutely. And I love the point, right? Your child is helping with younger kids. There's a whole leadership opportunity. But I also can't move mountains. And, you know, we do have some buildings that are full pre-K 3s. So why mess with that, right? And also we have some pre-K 3s in buildings that are in better shape. We also have some pre-K 3s that are in pretty isolated areas, not isolated like in woods, but you know, you've got a place like Cumberland. There's not really a building near there that you could even think about doing. And we don't have another $50 million to build another K-8, right? So it's not that pre-K 3 is a bad thing. It can be, it is a wonderful thing. And we just have to be thoughtful about the resources we have. And that's why with the presentation, it's like, if we believe in these things, do we have this ability? Oh, wow, we do. North is half empty. We can fill it. Atwood, half empty, we can fill it. So no, we'll continue to have many pre-K 3s, certainly in certain communities that are a little bit more isolated, a little bit more out of the like central area, stuff like that. But yeah, you bet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to routine matters and old business this evening. We have committee reports. And first up, we have a facilities committee report from Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Madam President. We had our meeting on December 5th, and we looked at various items on the agenda: fencing recommendation, demolition, abatement, design, so on and so forth. We also talked about Blue Star lawsuit update, some solar projects. We talked about field house equipment purchase recommendations, things that are needed by our sports folks. Also Eastern batting cage, which was damaged by storm. And talking about other items, but there are a couple of things that are on our agenda today for approval. So we'll be acting on those. Fitness equipment, for example, and at the Mount Hope Demo Award recommendation. So we discussed those items, and they were recommended to be brought to the board for action. That's pretty much the report, Madam Chair, Madam President.
Questions for Mr. Lopez? We're coming right back to you for Promise Committee report, Mr. Lopez.
There's no report, promise.
In your packet, you'll find a personnel report. You'll find a newly formatted personnel report. It looks to me to be pretty self-explanatory. If anyone has any questions, please ask Christina. Okay, good. All right, we're going to move along to the ISOA committee, Dr. Rodriguez.
Thank you very much, President. I got to follow you. It's very explanatory there in the. I sent to all of you the minutes for the meeting. It's very explanatory there. And the first thing in the agenda was districts, PR, and communications. And I want to say that nothing new, that this district is not doing even better. Then no problem for that. The only thing is who is the voice for the board? And I think that maybe we had to talk about that in the retreat. Who can talk to the media representing the board? Because it's good to have a voice, many voices. Then maybe that could be an agenda sometimes. The second thing was the report about the superintendent's meetings and the round table. And the third one was what every district is doing. And Lansing School Board approved the new strategy plan. That was my important report to them. And I think you had many. Then I go to Hazlet, and they report the board elections went well. We will be welcoming 2 new school board members the first of the year. As you know, the Robin was one of the elected board members for Hazlet. And they were very, very happy to have her in the board. Then it's another community that is suffering because of that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Questions for Dr. Rodriguez? Moving on to the Treasurers and Finance Committee, Mrs. Moore.
Just Finance Committee. I will read our treasury report. We did meet the Finance Committee. I was absent, but my beloved colleague, Caitlin, Trustee Kavanaugh, took notes. But I'm going to read the treasurer's report. We didn't have many changes there, if that's okay. Ben, if you want to chime in and say something, you can, but let me just go ahead. Okay, I'll do my thing. Okay, so I'll be reading the treasurer's report for the period of November 1st through November 30th. The beginning cash investment balance was $53,740,515, with receipts totaling $19,276,725, while disbursements equaled a negative $29,177,304. The net interfund transfer totaled $704,652. In interest from fund investments to the student and bond funds, as well as journal entries to remove the due to, due froms in all funds. The monthly transfer to the general fund for 2022 and 2019 bond expenses were $0. The ending general fund cash and investment balance on November 30th, 2022 was $44,544,587. The general fund's cash and investment balance is $21,600,546 greater as compared to the same time last year. I want to highlight our donations tonight. Donations received for the month of November were the donor Ecolab, the Black Bud Giving Fund gave $15. Thank you. The International Union of Painters gave to our CTE, our amazing CTE program, $2,000. I would like to acknowledge them as well. And I would like to also thank them, all of our donors, but last but not least, the plumbers and pipe fitters also gave to our CTE program $1,000, totaling $3,150.
So thank you. No, she's setting me up. I really want to highlight this because the unions, building trades folks in this community have been just outstanding in terms of supporting our CTE program. They know that, our students, and this is going to sound so cheesy, but our students are the future of their work. And we're just so proud of our relationship with the painters, the plumbers, the pipe fitters, and all the building trades. You're going to be seeing more in kind and more work from them as we continue to build out our really great 4-year CTE high school programming. So thank you for letting me acknowledge them as well.
No worries. Thank you. Madam President, this concludes the November 2022 Treasurer's Report.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mrs. Moore? Okay, moving on to our consent agenda for this evening. I'm going to make just one. I don't think I need to pull an item from the consent agenda. I just think it's titled incorrectly. Mount Hope demo should be I guess it can be called Mount Hope demo, but it's not, I want the board to know that it's not for the actual demolition of the Mount Hope building. It's for the temporary fencing that's going to surround the site. And there is a bid recommendation in your packet regarding the temporary fencing. I just want that to be clear. We haven't discussed the actual demolition yet, but we know that obviously it needs to be a secure site. With that said, may I have a motion? Mrs. Moore?
Oh, great, sure. I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda as presented. The regular meeting. No.
You can just leave the motion.
Right there.
Okay,
Support.
thank you.
It's been moved by Mrs. Moore, supported by Dr. Rodriguez. Any discussion? Will all those in favor of adoption of the consent agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
I forgot my Robert Rules cheat sheet.
that one over here. Moving on to action items this evening. First, we have the 2022 School Energy Bond Ratification Resolution. May I have a motion? Mrs. Logie?
I move that the Board of Education approve the 2022 Energy Bond Ratification Resolution as presented.
Support.
It's been moved by Mrs. Logie, supported by Mrs. Moore. Discussion? Want to say anything? No? Okay. Why don't you tell us what this is?
Sounds good. So first of all, wonderful to talk to you all again. As I think you've heard me say both today and many days, is that we need to upgrade our facilities. One of the kind of amazing things about modern technology is that there are energy retrofits that you can do, turning some of these lights to, let's say, LED and things like that. That's going to save a ton of money in the long run. That's energy costs, et cetera. And school districts have the ability to raise bonds themselves. So all of you probably know that we went to the community for a vote for the big bond, the capital bond, the $129.7 million. But we as a school district are able to have our own bonds for things like energy efficiency. And so what this is this kind of wonderful opportunity to raise some money so that we can get money now to do these energy retrofits, save money in the long run, and then pay back with all of the savings. So it's a really powerful and wonderful thing that Michigan state law affords us to do. And again, us being creative and trying to put kids first, we're trying to use every thing at our disposal to do what's right and be good shepherds of the money that the taxpayers give us. So I'm certainly happy to answer any questions, as I know Christina is as well. But it's really cool. I'll say that.
Further discussion? Will all those in favor please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to architect recommendation. May I have a motion?
Madam President,
Dr. Kavanaugh?
I move that the Board of Education enter into contract negotiations with King Scott Associates for architect and engineering services.
Support.
It's been moved by Dr. Kavanaugh, supported by Dr. Rodriguez. Ben?
Absolutely. So as you all know, we had this wonderful bond. And, you know, one of the great things about having this bond is it allows us to go to the market and say, hey, who wants to build this stuff? Who has some great, amazing ideas about how to build great schools? And I have to thank every architect firm that made a bid. We had numerous folks that came in with thoughtful presentations. I want to thank specifically Stantec, who has been our work with us now, as well as C2AE. But we were really impressed. I mean, I can't tell you, for those of you who were not in these meetings, we had a ton of really good people. But I will say that the King Scott folks blew us out of the water. They were so impressive in terms of their creativity, their ideas, how they could do things better for kids, better for the environment, using our space, and their just willingness and
and their creativity meant a lot to us. And we also know that we've seen the buildings that they've worked on, which are beautiful. And we know, and we did background checks. And so I want certainly the board to know, as well as the community to know, that this was not anything done lightly. I think a lot of you know that as I've come here, I've been very clear about really RFPing everything, being super upfront, super open about may the best organization win. And we were really impressed by King Scott, kind of above all. But again, everybody that made that first round, you really impressed us. And I want to thank you. And we look forward to doing more work in the future. And I'm certainly happy, and I know Christina's happy to answer any questions about the King Scott or the process.
I do have a question. I wrote down what impressed you. I mean, I know
Sure.
you mentioned some things, but I'm just curious, like what really stood out?
Sure. Two things, and I'll let Christina talk too. One was how tight their team was. They really, so, I mean, again, I apologize if this is boring for folks. Architects and engineers, they have a group of people. To build a school takes a lot of people. And what was so impressive about King Scott was they almost could like finish their own sentences. They almost could like know where they were going, how to put kids first, how to build buildings. And then the other thing that impressed me, which I think I said, is their creativity. In one of their presentations, it was like, look, you could do this, you could do that, you could do this other thing. And what I've spent a lot of time in the 16 months here sitting in this room is me having to come up with ideas. I'm not an architect. I'm not an engineer. It shouldn't be up to us. Now, I mean, our team is amazing and I, love all the things, but they were so willing to say, oh, let's figure out what's best for kids, but also what's best for your community. What are your needs? And so they were really thoughtful in all these different ways of putting kids first. So those were the things. But Christina, if there's other things you want to add?
I can also talk very loud, so that's not a problem. So just to add on to kind of what Ben said, the team also, I felt like was very cohesive with our team. And it was almost like sometimes they could finish our thoughts about where we wanted to go. So that was another huge piece of what was going on when we interviewed them. And just to expound on what Ben said about the different ideas, I mean, we're talking about things from permanent modulars to prefabbed walls that last long times, things that help with timelines to reduce our costs, because as we know, as things have happened over the last several years, things have gotten more expensive. So they came out with a lot of ideas to help us use our money and be good fiduciaries of the money for our community and for our families. And I'm just ecstatic to be working with them in the future. And we're going to hit the ground running and hopefully in January, early in the beginning of the year, and start on the Willow plans. And we look forward to the Willow families and community joining in and giving us their input.
Well, because you're ecstatic, I'm ecstatic.
Well, great. Just so board members are aware, I know this was a quick turnaround to make a choice on the architectural firm that we will be working with. And because we know that we need to get moving, we need to get planning and be able to get the ball rolling on these new buildings. So when we had our facilities committee meeting, they were planning to interview those architectural firms, and then Ben was going to meet with kind of the finalists and make a final recommendation. So I knew we had really good people and firms that responded to the RFP in the first place, and the entire board facilities team was very thrilled with the responses that we'd received. So I think that any choice you made, it would have been a good one, but I'm really excited to see from a distance what these firms are able to do for us. Further discussion? Will all those in favor please signify by saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on, and I am going to remove the closed session that's in item D from the agenda. So we'll move on now to fitness equipment purchase. May I have a motion? Anyone can do it, guys.
Go ahead.
Mr. Lopez?
Wait
I
a
thought you were
minute,
talking,
I'm
Mr.
looking for it right here. I move that we approve the fitness equipment purchase recommendation.
It's been moved by Mr. Lopez, supported by Dr. Body. This is for, I'll tell you what I think I know, and then if anybody wants to correct me, then please do. A few weeks ago in your personnel report, you would have seen 2 new employees for the district, Claude Hogan and John Horford. And those two individuals are spearheading a new student athlete development program located at the Don Johnson Fieldhouse that I am so thrilled about. And they need new equipment. So this is new equipment. Christina tells me the kids are like beating down the door after school every day for working out and tutoring. Anything else you want to add, Christina?
Just keep going. Oh, there you go. Super excited about this. And I also wanted to let you guys know that we just got done actually.
Painting?
We finished painting the weight room where all the equipment is going to be. And then we'll also be installing some new flooring in there as well. And we actually were able to get this equipment at a really good price. We have several people who work on the operations team who like to work out, and they couldn't believe the kind of deal that we were able to get. So I just wanted to at least share that, because they're like, there's no way I can get this stuff at this price, purchasing it all in bulk. But I'm most excited for the students that are going to be coming in to use this equipment, and the type of development that Claude and John are going to be able to bring in with these students. I know myself and the operation teams have been out to visit. Very excited. We've visited the tutoring space that they're using, and I know that John and Claude are over the moon and super dedicated to building up this program. And Ben, if you want to add more, another thing I'm just super excited about. So.
I mean, look, I like sports as much as the next person, but as a superintendent, what's so powerful about sports when it comes to school districts is in order to play sports, you have to be eligible, which means that you got to have a standard GPA. You've got to go to class. You've got to do work. And there's all sorts of other incredible positive externalities of being on sports teams and just being healthy. And what we need to do is to be very thoughtful about how do we invest. You know that we have the great Dr. Sue Wheeler, who is our director of health. That's terrific. Now being able to bring in more people with great equipment so that our children can be not just great athletes, but healthy people and kids that are going to pass their classes. And, even what Christina was saying about tutoring, there's all sorts of things that I'm really proud of here. And, that building, Don Johnson, is a venerable institution in this district, but it needs some love, and it's love that is going to directly translate to health, wellness, and, maybe a couple more wins for our sports team as well.
Do we have the equipment yet? Okay. Oh, duh, because we haven't given you the money yet, right? Working on that. Any further discussion from board members? Will all those in favor please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We've removed the closed session. We'll go to public comment on non-agenda items. I have two people who've registered for public comment. I'm going to start with Jada Pierpoint. And I see another name, Cordelia Parmalee, written on this card, but whoever is coming up, come on up. I'll invite you to join us at the podium right up here. You have 3 minutes to make your public comment. There will be a timer right here.
Hello, I'm here as an Everett High School student, and I want to address a concern with the bathrooms. They're constantly locked and not accessible to students, and if you ask about them, police officers or teachers can't help you, even if they want to. There's concern for health of the children and bodily function. If we're not allowed to use the bathrooms, that's not helpful for our learning, and a lot of times it takes away from school time when we have to go and search for a bathroom that's open or even has the adequate supplies to use, soap, toilet paper, or even a lock on the door. And I don't feel like it's a viable solution to have them locked, because most of the excuses are for skipping, but I think there's other solutions that could come up to stop that, other than just locking them and taking away our right to autonomy and going to the bathroom. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us tonight. I know hasn't been that long of a wait, but thank you for your comment. Next, I would like to invite Derek Speak. Thank you. My apologies. You have 3 minutes within which to make your public comment. Typically, the board does not respond to public comment, and you can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay. one second. Sorry, I'm a little broken up because it's kind of heartbreaking to me, to be honest. Hi, my name is Derek Wells Spiegel. I have 2 kids that go to Post Oak. They attend Post Oak Academy. One's a 6th grader and one's a 2nd grader. I do volunteer for their events. I even do the concession stands for to raise money for Post Oak. I recently became a substitute teacher, and I've taught at Waverly, East Lansing, Post Oak, Everett. And, some schools are harder than others. And, Everett is hard. There's a lot of issues there. But I chose Everett because I wanted to help my community. And I tried hard. I tried to be one of the best subs I could be. I did more than what they could ask for. And like he said, rough. So I'm coming here because as a concerned parent, because what I've heard from the superintendent very concerns me. There was an issue at Everett where there was like 26 kids in a fight. Maybe, I don't know, it was 26 kids, but probably like around about that got suspended at least. There's police officers there. I don't know why they didn't do anything to help traffic who they knew, because they already knew who was going to fight, but they didn't traffic them to their parents or anything. They let them caught up and grab a ball and just have a fight. Well, obviously, with the police officer there and there's fighting, some people might get arrested, which is understandable. And these 2 officers had this kid, one here, one here. Then the other officer ran from at least 10 feet away and struck the kid in the back of his head, which is very concerning. And I told him to chill out, bro. The other 2 are good. Like, just arrest them. There's no reason for excessive force. That's all I said. I never interfered with them. I never touched them or anything. But to keep a long story short, the superintendent was watching everything. And I talked to him later, and he told me that no matter what I see, no matter if they're using excessive force and hurting the kid, not to say anything. Not to say anything. That's like saying, if someone's on the back of the knee at the kid's head, not to say anything. And he banned me from substituting from those schools where I deeply care about my community, who have been here the whole time. And he personally banned me. I have the letter from the schools because he said I was interfering, which means that I said, chill out. The officer then comes after I told him to chill out. They kind of settled down. They slammed the guy to the ground and arrested him. That's fine. I didn't interfere with that either.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Just wait, please. And the officer came, walked up to me, assaulted me with his chest, and then pushed me on my chest and tried to push me again. And I was like, whoa, okay. And then the super.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, I have Kiana Pringle and then Dan Nowicki.
Hello, I'm Kiana. I'm just a concerned parent. I came here tonight because I currently have 2 children in grade school that don't have busing because we moved to the East eastern part of Lansing, and the school that they're supposed to go to, they don't have room for my kids. So now my kids are just sitting at home. And I've called and I've talked to people and they're trying to work on it. And I appreciate y'all transparency. This is my first time here, so I don't know much. But I think y'all might need to focus on the bus drivers just a little bit more. Like, they are therapists, security guards, gladiators, all kind of stuff. These kids have changed from when we were younger. So with that being said, I think we need to focus on making them want to stick around for us to transport our kids to show up to work. I think we missing the point on that. I appreciate the transparency with combining schools, but busing these kids at the same time, y'all already having problems with that. Like, we got to get them to the schools that y'all want to combine. And I'm having a hard time now. My kids go to Gardner on the south side. They haven't been to school in a month and a half. And in a minute, truancy officers will be at my door, but that's because I'm a single parent. I can't afford to take them back and forth to school. I work 8 to 5. I don't get off till 5, so I can't pick them up. And I don't. And if you get on a bus and waiting list, you get kicked off for the gas card. Or if you get a gas card, you get kicked off the bus waiting list. Like, it shouldn't be that way, because a lot of us are single parents. I feel like this is set up for couples. It's not set up for somebody that doesn't have a partner. So I just think we need to pay more attention to the bus drivers so they can be more inclined to come to work, because these kids are different. They are a lot more rowdy and they're a lot more disrespectful. And these bus drivers need to be compensated for that, because they're not just bus drivers. They're therapists, they barbers, all kind of stuff. So yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm struggling to get my kids back and forth to school, but they're working on it. So I appreciate y'all transparency, and I appreciate this meeting. I'll be here more often. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pringle.
Have a good day.
Mr. Nowitzki.
Thank you. I just want to share some feedback on the proposal to merge some of the schools into the K-8 model. As a parent who's been trying to get involved in the district with a kindergartner at Kendon, it felt kind of like a punch to the gut to hear about that. After trying to get the Family Teacher Association together and find out how I could be involved, to then last week hear that the school would be closed and that there'd be a parent meeting on Monday. And it really felt like it was a final decision. I still feel that way after hearing this presentation. I think the process of parents getting a letter on Friday for a meeting Monday for a decision that's going to be made really leaves very little room for parent input. As was shared earlier, that parents were communicated with. There were probably less than a dozen parents at Kendon. I was at another meeting today, and clearly many didn't know about this yet and hadn't really even understood that this was going to happen. I think the proposal has many good merits. I found out a lot more today than I did on Monday. There was no presentation like this. None of this information was shared with the parents beyond back and forth dialogue, which was helpful. But without all of this information, I've had no way to assess, would this be good for my student, or what should I think about this, or even what questions should I ask? I look forward to continuing the dialogue with the superintendent. Now that I have more of this data, I'm guessing maybe it couldn't be shared for public relations reasons, but as a parent and trying to build that trust, I feel like a lot of that was eroded in the way it was announced to me, and given on such a short notice with really no reasonable input in the decision making. I do feel heard that I can contribute to the planning and the transition process to hopefully talk about these concerns. But I just think, to the comments that were made about being sensitive to the families that are going to be impacted and how this will actually play out, a lot of attention is going to be need to put there. I've been fostering students for over 10 years, and I've seen school buildings change from this configuration to that configuration to this model to that model, many times even in the last 10 years. And so I have little trust right now that this will actually stick, that we'll still have a K-8 school in the next 8 years for a kindergartner to go to, and we won't just be switching to something else. And right now it feels like we're making this decision without those plans about what the school buildings will actually look like, and how the model will work, what the pedagogical changes will be. So I'm skeptical. I have some of those questions you've raised about, will this really change anything? To me, it feels like it's a number one financial decision, and I support that as a taxpayer. It's the right decision to best use our buildings and best use our funds. But I'm still kind of waiting to hear what will actually change. How will academics be improved? And I would have hoped for more notice as a parent to be part of that process, even just to get this information when there was a parent meeting so I could be informed, help other parents understand that, and not have to worry and have anxiety for a week of not understanding any of this when the deadline's coming up to make this decision. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Dr. Rodriguez.
Thank you very much, Madam President. We are now in different moments and different kind of the board meeting that we never had before. And the first thing I'm going to do is a motion, and I hope that all board members support it. And I move that this Board of Education of Lansing School District thanks President Gabriel Lawrence and board member Amy Hodges for all the services that they have done to the Lansing School District. Now I almost got thought, but that's okay. It's nothing I can do anymore, but I hope that they record that we did that motion, please. Now we are going to present to you something, and after that, I'm sure that everybody wants to say something for good or for bad or in the middle. I want you to come with me, please. I cannot do that alone.
Judge Lawrence, oh, did I say Judge Lawrence? I'm speaking it into existence. Stand up. Special person. Gabrielle Lawrence. Gabrielle Lawrence. I've only known you for what, 2 years now? In honor and appreciation for your 8 years of dedicated service to the Lansing School District Board of Education, 2014 through 2022. We salute you. We give this to you. We honor you. Like I said, I've only known you for 2 years, but I appreciate you. I love you. We have to take pictures. So they got to hold this. That's a card for you.
We got more stuff.
Are we gonna?
We are going to be all in front of here for a picture, all of us.
Okay. We're gonna go to the front?
Got my code and.
Yeah.
Oh, in the front.
Oh, you're taking one, okay.
Yeah. We are a team. Come here.
John and I always want to back in.
Yeah, Madam President. Buildings and how the new buildings or old buildings look different. Was no question in my mind that many of the renovations were done because you. And the leadership that you had in front of the community and organization in different occasions. I was witness some of these activities you were having in the community, and the students are going to, and the families are going to enjoy the new buildings and new learning thanks to you and your work. Then that is your legacy, one of them. Thank you very much, and thank you for all your leadership. Good or bad in the middle, but thank you very much. And I hope everybody.
Well,
The superintendent
sure. Well,
lead us.
absolutely. They don't knock it over. certainly on behalf of the school district, your your leadership in a difficult time way before I got here allowed us to be in such a better position. COVID was incredibly difficult. Your shepherding through that has been incredible. Your desire to always put children first with a passion and a care, you can't replicate that. And the fact that you're, your youngest and your children, you're looking forward to sending them here. It's been really wonderful. And as a superintendent, kind of representing the management side rather than the kind of like the board side, to be able to work with you personally has been really terrific. I will miss you dearly, and I only wish you the best on the county commission. I don't really know what they do. I hope it can somehow help us, but I know what you did here, and what you did was you put us on a path that will allow us to be great. So thank you.
I've already thanked you, like already given you a card and whatnot, but what I think will always stick with me is your passion and your resilience and your ability for introspection. And anyway, just really care about you. I really do. And thank you for everything you did for us.
Gabe, I can't tell you how much I admire you. I want to be like you when I grow up. You are an incredible advocate, and a fierce person in all aspects of your life, whether it's on the board or in your career or within your family. I feel incredibly grateful that my transition onto the board could overlap with your time on the board. And I'm going to miss you very much, but luckily I know where you live. So.
I'll go next. I've actually known Gabe since college. We had a lot of friends in common. Our career trajectories took us in our separate ways and then brought us back together. I learned a lot from you. You supported me joining this board, and we've been through some tough times together. And I often agreed with you, but didn't always. But even when we didn't agree, I really appreciated that you stood by what you believed in. You're very principled. And in politics, which this is, there's a lot of people that don't have principle, that might be doing things like we do for reasons that aren't noble. But that's not you. So.
Well, Gabe, I remember you way back, your civil rights days. We had a chance to cross paths at that time. Who knew we were going to be together, for several years around this board. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you for what you've done. COVID just put us through the ringer. And with your leadership and the board working together, we came through with flying colors. People are amazed that our board was able to do what we did in spite of what was happening all around us. In other boards where they had difficulty doing what we did. But I think that was both your leadership and the work of this board and superintendent that helped us through. So thank you very much for all that, and wish you luck in your new position, and see how we can cooperate with the county somehow. Maybe the county has some stuff that we can link with. Okay? Thank you.
Like I said, I've only known you for 2 years, but thank you for trusting in me. Being new to the board, you asking me to serve on all these committees, still wet behind the ears, but you trusted me, and I believe you have faith in me. So I just want to say thank you for that, and just thank you for being you. And I just pray we stay in touch.
I'm glad we only 7 here. Will be 20. Will be all night long because maybe it's emotional tonight, but your legacy will stay with many, many years, and wish you the best over there and the new mission that you are having, and also in the future of Lansing. Then we wish you the best. The sky is the limit. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. One of the sayings that I've always liked is bloom where you're planted. And I'm planted here. For better or for worse. And I've always tried my best to make my community better. And like many of you have said, we haven't always agreed on every issue. And the community that we serve and this board has not always agreed on every issue. And we've always said, we know that we're never going to make everyone happy. We can't make everyone happy. But every second that I've been on this board, I've tried to do the right thing. And I've tried to think about the kids who are in our district and how to best serve those kids. And I hope that everyone knows that that was always my mission, and I know that that's always the mission of this board. It's interesting to think about how much my life has changed since becoming a board member. When I joined this board in 2016, my husband and I were dating. Now I feel like we've been married for 100 years, and my oldest child turned 5 yesterday. And this morning I chaperoned his first field trip. And this afternoon he had RIF, like a huge, huge day for Eddie Lawrence. And I'm so proud of the work that we've done on these bonds, and so proud of the big changes that we've made in the district, and so proud to have new leadership and new board members. But there are also so many little tiny things that I'm proud of that people don't think about, like the 4th grade Learn to Swim program at Gardner. Just little things that I know that we did that. I know that that happened, and I know that that's probably going to change the life of at least one kid. I love this district. It's a part of me. It's a part of my family. And every moment that I've been on this board, it's been an honor. Thank you.
I do want to call a point of order because there's a motion on the floor and there was a second. So I think we have to vote on the motion.
You had to do that. I can't. You are the president.
Will all those in favor please signify by saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? That would be like,
Woo!
thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We're going to move on to report from secretary and announcements.
Thank you, Madam President. The students are going to be, and parents and well, no parents, but the teacher will be in the session from December 26 to January 6. Monday, January 9th, school resume. Be ready for the buses and everything. Thursday, January 12th, organization meeting for the Board of Education at 5:30 to 6. 5:30 to 6 for the organization meeting. Regular board meeting at 6 o'clock. Monday, January 16th is no school. It's celebration of Martin Luther King Day. On Thursday, January 19th, regular board meeting at 6 p.m. That concludes the announcement for the secretary. Thank you very much.
Comments from board members? With no further business before the board at 7:43, we are adjourned.